you must do the work. You must get to a point where doing the work is so painful that it's breaking you, and then, and only then, can you hand it off to someone else. What do you think about that?
What do you mean? What do you mean by painful?
Here's the thing, Mark. As I watch you from the sidelines and I watch you flourish and flounder, both.
You gotta have both. I'm not perfect. I understand that there's multiple ways to delegate, some better than others. And then once you do that enough times and you realize that, okay, I understand video editing to a degree, now it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. Can I get somebody else to do it? But
I think you're trying to just like you overanalyze yourself and maybe over-optimize yourself in some areas.
This is the problem, is you've given me counter advice. Because there's a podcast that I put out with Nick Sariah, and your advice in that was don't just sell, which was my thought process to make money.
I'm learning something big lately. Lately, he says. I'm great at planning, like give me a massive goal and a whiteboard, and I'll map out exactly how to get from point A to point B. But here's the thing, planning and execution are two very different muscles. Yes, indeed they are. And for most of my life, I've been doing both. I'm realizing I don't want to do both anymore, says the youngest guy in WordPress. I want to lean into what I'm best at, vision, structure, direction. Here's the hard truth. I would say that you must do the work. You must get to a point where doing the work is so painful that it's breaking you, and then, and only then, can you hand it off to someone else. What do you think about that?
What do you mean? What do you mean by painful?
If I were grading you, flourishing and floundering at the same time. You are correct at what you need to do in terms of delegate. But if I were to guess, like if you started delegating today, let's say for your WordPress agency business stuff, if you started immediately delegating today, I think the next problem that you would run into, and maybe you already know this, is understanding like what that process is that you're delegating off to, or that you're delegating off to the person, and then optimizing for that. And what I've found is folks who delegate too early spend too much money, just like high-level thinking, spend too much money, and oftentimes think they know the process, but don't know the process because they didn't fully live it. So to illustrate that, what I mean is if you came to me and you're like, freak, man, I have like 8 web projects I'm doing right now, and I am just drowning in the work. Right? One over here I'm designing, the other one over here I'm helping modify the copy and importing content. The other one over here I'm making a custom plugin, and I am drowning in all of this work. I think only then can you actually look at the real pain points and define those processes, because you're just hitting a barrier of like, I can't progress without breaking this barrier. My question to you is, 1, do you feel like you're at that point? And 2, do you feel like you know the process down so tightly that you could delegate it today? Strictly speaking about your web agency work. We could talk about the content stuff in a minute, but strictly speaking about the web agency work, like where do you feel you're at with that? Or does this tweet not even mean web agency stuff? Is it something else?
There's a lot there, buddy. I mean, I would say that the tweet kind of is just about both things in general. At the top of this, also, I'm 29 years old. I don't claim to be an expert in this stuff, but I mean, there are things that I know better than others and things that I'm better at than others. When you're talking about different skills, video editing is not something that I want to continue to do. And it's not something that I'm particularly good at. And it's not something that I feel like is my highest leverage thing that I can do. There are I feel this is a stepping stone type of thing. It's like you learn a bunch of stuff, and then you start to be able to delegate the things that you like slowly progress at being able to, that you're better at and that you understand. I feel like I learn a bunch of stuff and I'm like 80 to 90% proficient at it. It's like, okay, I know this like the back of my hand. if I want to go to the next level, then I need to, and I haven't really done this, but if I want to go to the next level, then I need to like either make this so efficient or automated that I don't have to devote so much energy to it, or I need to have somebody else do it. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with some of this. Again, to use the video editing as an example, I don't feel like that's a high leverage thing for me to do whatsoever. I know that I could get that done for a reasonable amount of money. Over on the agency side, that's honestly, to me, a lot tougher, because I have opportunities now, with existing clients and new clients to either build new websites or go wider in the service offering. And they're very like attractive to me, but they're also like a lot of time spent. And then like I have to be the one doing all of the work. I don't think the more that I think about this, that's not really scalable at all. Like it's not even something I want to do. I think that's the reason I got burnt out on agency work before, is because I was doing all the work. And then I kind of let it plateau a little bit with just maintenance stuff. And then I started selling again. I'm like, this is great. This is, you can drive revenue from this for your customers and for yourself, but you can't do it by yourself. So that was a lot right back at you. Well, I don't.
Yeah. I mean, I remember but the biggest fault I had going into, and maybe I'm projecting with a lot of this, but when I started my agency, that was the biggest mistake, was delegating too early.
Okay. Unpack that though. Like, what do you mean by that? Because
yeah, I mean, literally hiring people. When I started my agency, the first thing I said was, I must hire a team immediately. And I hired some guys that are really proficient in WordPress now, but in the beginning, they were young, they weren't proficient, but I was like, I'll pay you whatever you want. Here we go. Like, go ahead, whatever you need to do. You tell me the number and I'll go sell it to the client. And what happened is like we were spending far too much money than what we knew what our capabilities were, right? I didn't get to experience the pain of like me building all the WordPress websites to understand what had to be done. That process that you want to delegate to, the one that I constantly like beat over your head about doing in your own web agency, I didn't learn that out of the gate. I learned it after by going, holy shit, we're selling WordPress websites, whatever the number was back then, for $3,000, and it's costing us literally $2,700 to produce, because we're just paying these guys to do it, and we're not taking into account like how they're doing it, how we're maintaining it, how we're launching it, all this stuff. It was great because I was delegating, but I didn't know what I was delegating. I was just saying yes to everything. And I think, and this still stands today for like things with the WP Minute, if I don't fully understand the process for things, like I'm working with people on designing new pitch decks, working with people on writing new content, working with people on editing my videos. If I didn't know that process, I would just be burning that candle again. Like I would just be burning money, let somebody else figure it out. I had to get to a point with the WP Minute where I was just like you, I can't do this anymore, but I know it fully before I started to delegate. Have I always wanted to delegate this shit? Yes. But I wasn't at the point where I felt the real pain or the real process of what I needed to get done. And I don't want to see you go down that same path where it's just like, yep, delegate it, screw it. And then you realize at the end of the day, your profits aren't as big as they should be, or you're losing money, right? Like I did at the agency, like losing money for delegating incorrectly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that there's multiple ways to delegate, some better than others. I think most people end up, when they need to do something, if they're resourceful, they're going to be like, okay, I filmed a video, now I need to edit it. Most people are probably going to be like, how do I edit it? Not, can I hire somebody to edit it? I think especially now, because everybody's kind of relatively skilled overall with technology, they're probably like, is there a way that I can do this myself for like cheap and I could try it? And then once you do that enough times and you realize that, okay, I understand video editing to a degree, now it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. Can I get somebody else to do it? My question to you is like, what is like, it sounds like you're putting kind of like an arbitrary thing on that though. Like it's like you can't, like you're saying, like, are you saying you have to be an absolute expert at a skill before you can have somebody else do it for you?
No, I don't think you have to be an absolute expert, but because you're a big boy and I think you can take the criticism, I don't see you in an overwhelmed state. It is my belief that you shouldn't. I'm not like I'm not super fiscally conservative in my business. However, I think when it comes to especially the process and the delegation stuff, and this is just me, is you don't have to be a professional or perfectionist, whatever term you used. You have to be at a point where the pain really hurts in order to delegate it effectively, in my opinion, because you know everything, you know all the pain you're going through so that you can outline it and give it to somebody. When I started delegating early on with the WP Minute, I'd be like, hey, you just write for me. What do you want me to write? Just write about WordPress. And then I'd get people, who I would pay for like blog posts, and it was just the worst blog posts ever. And it's just like, well, you told me to write about WordPress. And I'm like, yeah, but not that word. Like I wanted something better. And I didn't even know like what I was going through that I needed to get them to give me the right stuff. And I don't see you at that point where you're just like drowning, where you're like, oh my shit, I need so much help with this stuff, that you might not know what to ask for when you delegate.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate the perspective there. Am I like overwhelmed? I don't know.
So here's an example on the video stuff. If all of a sudden you delegated the video editing, like, do you know how you would, like, what you would request for a video edit? Or would you just say, hey, edit my video for YouTube? Like, have you thought about like what that looks like when you hand it over to somebody else?
Yeah. Like what the process is, what I'm asking for them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like I have a job listing that I've kind of like put together, and with the help of Christian Taylor and such, and other people that are way better and have done this stuff before. I think
one might call him a veteran.
He's a veteran. He's been doing this for a long time. I mean, like you don't see me at like that expert level or whatever. I'm actually genuinely wondering, you know me pretty well at this point, but I would be very curious to know what other people's opinions are too. Like, do you think, like, what is my level of competence in these areas? And what I mean specifically by competence is we'll put it directly towards like delegation of the things that like I've done. I think I'm actually way better than I lead on about, like, and I think, and it's because I've never really had the reps at like trying to manage or delegate. I think I'm actually way fucking better than I lead on to be in those categories.
I would disagree. I mean, I'm not like fully disagreeing with you. What I would say is, and this is me, old me talking to a young guy. This is, I think a lot of people who've been in business for a while might have heard you say that and kind of chuckle, because managing a team, even if they're part-time or just like contractors or people from like hiring from like a hiring website or whatever, it's vastly different than talking to AI.
Well, there's emotion. It's not a one-to-one. It's a human for sure.
Yeah. So no, I didn't say that you were like maxed out at your professionalism or anything. I don't see you maxed out from a bandwidth perspective. Like my take on you is like, you're not maxed out from a bandwidth perspective. That's just my opinion. I mean, I talk to you almost every day. I don't think you're drowning in client work, because I think I think you would have a completely different problem. Like you're leaning into that direction of trying to solve that problem. But I think you're trying to just like you overanalyze yourself and maybe over optimize yourself in some areas, as I do, like you start projecting that problem far too soon. And maybe that's a better way of framing it, at least in me saying it to you, is like you're projecting the problem before it happens, and what I'll call spending before that problem happens, which is what I did. Because I went into my agency and I said, ain't no way I'm doing this. I'm hiring people right out of the gate. And I didn't know how to manage a team when it was my own team, like when I was the one running the business and not some other company that owned the team who's paying their salary, right? And managing all that other stuff. Like I went into it completely green, just saying spend, spend, spend. Let me just bring a team in to do this. What do I know? And it wasn't until like literally 5 years later, after like those guys stopped working for me and got other jobs, where I realized, holy shit. After they left, I was like, wow, and brought in new people with a renewed focus. I was like, wow, I was wasting so much time and money. They're great guys. It wasn't their fault. It was my fault completely, by not setting the expectation, but also because I wasn't doing the work, and I say drowning, it makes it sound worse, but I ultimately feel like you have to get to a point where you're doing all the work before you hire somebody, so you know all the waypoints along the way.
Well, okay, a couple things. The first thing is I'm going to put this little adage here that I've heard before that I've heard from many people is like, if you feel like it's time to hire, you should have hired, what is it, like 6 months ago or something like that. So that's the first thing. Let's just table that right there. I'm not saying like I'm necessarily there, but let's put that there and just realize that is something that is not, I didn't make that up. Okay, so that's the first thing.
Yeah.
Well, quickly I realized that, and you actually, this is the problem, is you've given me counter advice, because there's a podcast that I put out with Nick Sarayev, and your advice in that was don't just sell, which was my thought process to make money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if you sell, you quickly realize, oh fuck, if I keep doing this, I'm going to be fucked, because I'm not going to be able to sell a $20,000 website project and then like a bunch of like pay-per-click stuff and do a bunch of videos all by myself. So that's why like then I get put back in the trap of like, okay, well I need to optimize this. I need to like build this plane as we're falling out of the sky, so to speak, or whatever. And again, I don't think either way is probably like right or wrong. There's pros and cons to each, but I have literally been so far in the optimization, no money realm. And then I was like right on the edge of like making money without optimizing. So probably got stuck there. So the next thing I probably need to do is like balance those out or think of a better plan there, because you need to make money. And I've already been on the other end. I'm not going to over optimize, because that obviously I've been down that path. That doesn't specifically work. Although I can say to you, I am way more competent in that realm than probably people think, because I probably haven't shown that publicly enough. But that's the story. So I don't know if that, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I remember that when I saw your tweet, which called for this emergency pod, it was like, oh God, don't just go hiring people, you know, willy-nilly, right? Like, because that's going to...
Real quick, asterisk, I don't have the money to do that either. Like, that's the other big problem is like, I'm not just going to go into debt to hire people.
Okay.
But it's like literally you have to do both at the same time, or at least be cognizant of both at the same time. So I'm definitely not going into debt for this shit. No, it's a mindset.
Okay. That's, you know, that was, I didn't want to say that on a public podcast, but that was like kind of where I was hinting at, because that's why I was sharing the story about, you know, my experience of hiring a team, because I was just like losing money instead of printing money. And that was a big issue. It was just like, hey, we totally lost because we didn't know that process. So it's a little bit of that. You're absolutely right. Like, defining the process is critical. I know you're not talking more agency stuff. I know you want to like probably optimize content side of your business more. But again, like, I think on the agency side, when I always talk to you about like, you know, do $1,000 website, do a $2,000 website, and like figure out the process there. I think those things are a little bit more cut and dry in terms of like, here's the process. Here's how much this process costs me. Here's how I'm going to go sell this process to a customer. And then what's my profit margin from that? How much does it cost me to acquire this customer? Now let's subtract that, whether that's in-person time or advertising or whatever else you're doing, and then multiply that at scale. What do I need to do to run a business? And then take that process and say, okay, if I'm 20% profit, if I sell $1,000 website and I make $200 per website, what do I need to scale that to make X amount of dollars of revenue for the business? And then if I look at that customer and say, just a website, I make $200, but then what if I sold content package to this person, and now I can make $400 per customer because I've upsold them on a content package. And then the whole thing starts to make sense when you can process, delegate, rinse, repeat. And I think that is the formula for a successful service-based business, right?
So
unless you're like a 10 up where you're just like, I'll build you whatever, but that whatever costs $1 million, right? Where, you find that customer and that customer goes, we want to build super custom thing that does not exist on the planet. You go, okay, we'll build that for you. It's $1 million, and you make $250,000 of revenue off of that. It's a totally different ballgame. But I think for the common agency owner like you and I, it's more cut and dry. Can you do the same thing in content? Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to do it with the WP Minute. It's just, I think it's just slightly different. Well, let's go back to your job posting for video editor, right? Okay, so it takes video editing off the table. The video is edited for you. Then what? Like in your world right now, in terms of like expectations with this person, how does this help the business of content production? Edits the video? Great. Mark doesn't have to edit a video. Then what? Like, what's the next step? Like, how you see that? Like, how you see optimizing that workflow? What happens next?
I mean, well, the next step that, like, if I don't have to edit it, I mean, I don't know. Are you asking who the next step in the flow, or the next person that I would hire if I actually?
Well, yeah, like point? So, like that solves the edit, but like, what now? What like what else goes through your head? Okay. Eric writes for me. At the WP Minute. And what was happening was, so I have a particular budget that I pay Eric every month. And a few months ago, it was, hey, Eric, write 4 articles a month, freelance articles, et cetera, et cetera. And I got to a point at the beginning of the year where like revenue was flatline, right? For terms of sponsorship, because that's the main source of income. Revenue was flatline. It wasn't like dropping, but it was flat. And I was hitting that level of like literal start. Like I could feel like that burnout coming, where I was just like, fuck, I don't want to, same thing. I'm over here, like he's writing, and I'm over here doing this 45-minute podcast every week. And then I'm editing the podcast. I'm uploading it. I'm sending the newsletter. I'm creating the thumbnails. I'm uploading it to YouTube. So I turned to Eric and I was just like, hey man, I need you to cut back on writing for me, and I need assist on editing. We're not really editing. It's just uploading the video and audio and writing the show notes for that and sending the newsletter, right? So I had to shift resources to get him in place to do that, so that would free me up for all the other shit I have to do, all the other content I have to create, and my day job. Because I was hitting a point where it's like, man, there's no, like, I can already feel this coming. Like I'm done, like mentally done with all of this stuff. But I do have the revenue coming in. So of the revenue that I do have come in, I can reassess that and move that over to him. So I also interviewed some people. I put out a job posting for people to do the same thing, just edit the video. And then I talked to all these people. I forget what site I used. And I was just like, this isn't going to solve my problem. I just have this video edited now. I have to upload it still. I have to title it. I have to create the thumbnail. I have to make the blog posts. And I started looking at all these things, and I was just like, Eric, is this something you can do for me? But there's not a lot of editing. Literally, there's no editing that he really has to do unless I tell him to like take out a clip or whatever. But it's really just about processing the writing and getting it all in place to literally hit send and publish. But I realized, like, no, man, like editing the video or editing the podcast, it has to be fully off my plate. The whole process has to be off my plate. So that's a long way of getting to, like, somebody makes a video for you. Does that really solve the pain point for you? Or is it something even greater? Because for me, it was something greater. which was all the shit, not just the single video.
Do you think you have the ability to be, if you wanted to, do you think you have the ability to be somebody like when you open up your feed on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, you just constantly see their shit, like an Alex Hormozy or a Gary Vaynerchuk or something?
Do you think
Did
I
you
have
ever
the
have
ability?
you've been creating content? Hang on a second. You've been creating content for a very long time, right? You've been podcasting, you've been doing video, you've been doing all this stuff. You've put out a shit ton of content. Do you feel like you could, like if you forget everything else and you could just be a content guy, like you were the face, the talent? I put this other tweet out the other day. Are you the talent or the producer? Do you think you could be the talent?
Yeah.
Okay. Like at that scale? I mean, you're up there on scale, but at that scale?
Yeah. Yes, I could.
Okay. I am 100% confident that I can at this point. So my point in saying that is that the quicker that I can move towards the thing that I know that I'm naturally best at within reason and not being like a piece of shit that just talks about stuff that I don't know.
Yes.
Right? Can't do that. I'm not saying I'm just going to like not learn anything and not do anything, but the quicker that I can move in that direction, or at least have the mindset to move in that direction, that's like the first time in my life where I've actually had like a goal of somewhere where I want to head. But I just feel like I am a good enough communicator, and I'm establishing a track record of people feeling that like, oh, you're a good educator, you're this, that, whatever. Like you're fun to talk to, and I get a lot of value out of the content that you provide. That's just where I'm headed. So, that's not to say we're going to close down the agency. That's not to say we're not going to do these other things. But if I can constantly think about like, okay, let's go back to the original question, video editor. I feel what you're saying there, but what you're saying there is like, you're almost saying, the way I'm interpreting is like, oh, if I can't not do any of the work, then I'm not even going to delegate some of the work. That's how I interpret what you just said.
That's a fair way to interpret it. But I would say that I feel maybe you haven't seen the entire process. I give it up. I saw somebody that you're probably friends with tweet the other day. You know how I like to subtweet and call people out. I'm trying to do it nicely, where they were just like, because I have this team, I can now do 2 videos a week, paraphrasing a little bit. And I was like, 2 videos a week? Guy, I could do 2 videos in an afternoon. Like, what's the challenge here, right? I do 2 videos, 2 podcasts, 2 newsletters, 2 blog posts, live stream. Like, that's nothing.
All right, hang on.
But yeah. But so anyway, the point is like, I don't know if you've hit the pain point yet where you need. My intent here was like, are you really at that pain point where you're delegating already?
I hear what you're saying. I'm still a little confused on the definition of that pain point. It seems a little arbitrary, but I have never been cognizant of my time. So again, that's where I'm at right now. It's just, I feel like that's these little things here and there, just not what I should be doing long term. And if there's an opportunity to delegate those, then I think that it's at least worth trying. And then if it doesn't work out, then I don't know, that's a mistake and I learn from it.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I sent you a DM before this recording, and I was just like, I've been telling you about delegating and the process and all that stuff. So you are right in thinking that. When I read your tweet, I was thinking much more on the agency side of things than like the content side of things. It was just concerning to me. I don't want to see you go down that rabbit hole of just like delegate, and then like 3 months later be like, holy shit, I probably have to figure out like the right process first for at least bringing in. Here's like a challenge to that is, do you have the sales side of it down enough to bring customers in on the content side to fund the ability to delegate? I mean, you don't have to answer that now, I guess, but but just like thinking about that.
Did you ask in the content side or in the
on the content side? If that's where your main focus is going to be for content and not the agency.
Yeah, I mean the content thing is a double-edged sword though, because it's like when I think of hiring a video editor, I think of that being the quickest lever that I could pull to make me want to make more videos, because I do want to make more videos. I just don't want to fucking edit them. And I know that they would be a lot better if I didn't edit them, because they would be like at least a touch more engaging. They would be like, and I've just looked at other people that have done this, and it's just like, Okay. I mean, I'll click record, talk for 20 minutes and put it up every single time. I don't want to make thumbnails either though, you know? So it's like those are things that like I'm not good at a certain point. I felt like from the very beginning of doing all this business shit that I could just make my own LLCs, I could do my own bookkeeping, I could do all this. I still do all that shit. Like that is fucking stupid. Like why am I doing all that?
You have, but see that. All right,
No,
this
no, no.
goes way back to my original thing. Is
Are you gonna say you
ahead.
have to learn it and then delegate it?
Well, you have to. You have to
100%.
at least experience it to get to a
No,
point
I
where
don't
it's just
dis- I
like,
don't
oh
disagree
my god,
with
I
that.
can't. Okay.
Like you're all the way in it doing it all yourself or not looking at it all. You don't want to be doing it all yourself, but you absolutely don't want to know your fucking numbers. So it's like I feel like I need to sit more in the middle on those types of tasks. And I've just been so far to the one way of like I'm a one-man show, only doing my own thing. So, you know, to go back to the agency thing real quick cuz I know that's where you started with that. Like the problem that I literally started to face is that I have businesses in my network now and that I do website work for, and like they have serious, like they don't have serious business problems, but they have like low hanging fruit business optimization problems. That is actually one of my favorite things to solve. Like I like to look at a bit, and I don't know if this is an actual business model that people implement or not. I think it's just a fractional COO type situation. Their business works. Like they make money, they pay people. Like it's not like some stupid like startup thing. Like it works. It's been over time. But I'm sure you've seen this. You have a business and like you start doing the marketing website stuff. Okay, great. Well, now the problem becomes though, like they're like you create a website for them, great. Then you maybe start doing some advertising stuff for them, great. But now you start to realize like the internal processes of these businesses is bad, and you can't track the numbers past like the website. So it's like, how am I supposed to tell you if you're making money from this stuff that we're doing if you're not tracking the leads properly at the ones that you close, for instance, something as simple as that. And now I'm like, well, I know how to do that and I can charge money to do that. So let me go do that. Where do you start? And the last part of it is I can't do that all by myself. Absolutely not. Like there's zero chance. So I saw it in a microdose of sales starting to go up and me getting more opportunities. And I'm like, I'll keep selling, but I'm quickly going to get fucked here on the amount of output that I can do. So I'm not the first person to deal with this, but I'm currently dealing with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything is a teachable process that you would just have to. I think the issue with scaling that, if you were just like to look at that in a microscope, is, the funny argument I like to kind of make with you sometimes is if I were to start a WordPress agency today, especially focused on like a productized service, say a $5,000 website, I would look for hiring people that are really good with Elementor. If I were starting a productized WordPress service-based business today, selling websites at $5,000 a pop, I would look for people that were really good with Elementor. Why? Because there's many of them. Why? Because it's not writing code from scratch. Why? Because Elementor is huge. Why? Because there's tons of resources for WordPress and Elementor. And from a business perspective, I can scale that faster in the beginning than it is for me to hire an engineer to write custom code for me to compete with 10up. And if I look at scaling a business and I hire 3 Elementor people to help me build sites, and those 3 Elementor people get hit by a bus, I can bring in 3 Elementor people probably within the end of the week. Just from a business perspective, I can build around that. Your particular case, where you need to like have somebody who has like business sense like you and can like optimize for a client, that's probably a much more expensive person, to bring into your business and train them on a process. You're talking about all the years of experience you have and like that creative thinking. That's like a founder level thing that is very hard to scale because you'd have to find somebody like me, and you can't afford it. Right?
Well, I mean, again, I thank you for laying that all out there. And I think honestly, you just kind of proved some of my point, at least the way that I interpreted that. It's like, that is who I am. That's who I'm constantly becoming. So it's
that's a good thing.
I also like learned through osmosis so much from all of you and others that like, okay, well, let's do the work, but also let's be thinking about like kind of what's coming next and how we can continue to do it.
I just challenge you again in the agency perspective, not the content perspective. I challenge you to sell and do the work while the plane's flying right now, to learn it end to end so that you fully know what path you want to go down from the agency perspective.
I can say let's just unpack. Let's just sit there for a second. I agree with what you're saying. I don't disagree with that. For somebody like me, what is that actually like? It sounds like you're setting some sort of like arbitrary overwhelm level, or maybe it's like number of projects that the websites that you have to build, or number of client projects that you have to have going on at one time. And to do that, I mean, is that all just fully subjective, or is there any level of objectivity to it?
Like if you looked at, again, I'll use the $5,000 website because I think a lot of freelancers hover around that price. If you looked at the $5,000 projects that you did, do you feel like you've had enough at-bats with those where you were like, yep, I get another one. I know exactly how I'm going to build it, how I'm going to pitch it. Like, do you feel like you've done that enough times to be like, got the process in my head? I know how I'll hire to scale this business.
Most of them have probably been too custom for that.
Okay. So, I mean, I would just look at how I would analyze
in a whole, yes, but not like the actual stuff. Yeah.
So it's not arbitrary to me. It's just, if you haven't had enough at bats at something, like do you because again, like I'm just referencing like my own failure. My own failure was I ran an agency. I ran an agency at this other company, and certainly I know what I'm doing. Look what I did over there. I'm going to do that over here. Where do I begin? I bring in a team of people, obviously, and I start managing them, obviously, and I start going and selling the websites. That's what we did over there. But that was a whole different business with a whole different printing money as an ISP, probably losing money on web. And I just was not privy to that information. I had no idea. Didn't know why these guys were getting paid. I just ran the team in terms of like help these guys build websites. I didn't know what was going on the other side, and what the costs were. So when I went to my business, I was just like, well, yep, that's the process. I know I need to delegate because I'm not going to be the one to build websites. I need to go sell them. But then what happened? I just didn't know what they were doing internally. I didn't feel that pressure until they left, my guys that I hired, until they left. And then I had to pick up the pieces of the puzzle. So I was like, holy shit, here's what I need to offer. It's not what they were doing. It's this. This is what makes sense for the business. So I don't think there's an arbitrary number. I would just say, like, you look at yourself internally and say, do you feel like you're ready to make that leap? Like you've seen enough to create the process?
So a couple things. First of all, are you saying, I want to ask a question about process, or I'll tell you something about process, but like, just to clarify, are you saying that you started a web design agency without knowing anything about web design?
No. I didn't know anything about building. I didn't know anything about running. Yeah. Well, running my own agency. I didn't know anything about like what it took to run my own agency. I ran an agency inside an ISP at my old job before starting my agency, which is completely different than understanding like, how do you get the client next? Like, we didn't have a sales team. People were just like, it was just all referral based business. There were no goals. It wasn't until I got into the driver's seat of my own company, it was like, holy shit, like, oh yeah, where's the next customer coming from? At the old job, it was just like customers were coming. So that was like like all these different things, and I had a team of experienced people that knew how to scope projects. When I started my business, I didn't know how to scope a project for a customer. I had guys I was paying that were scoping the project for me. I don't want to say running up the clock. They were just getting paid. We were just like, yeah, scope the project. We'll just pay you to scope the project. And I was like, that's so much like intelligence, like business intelligence, that I didn't have at the time, that somebody else was doing for me, just draining the profits from every single project.
So again, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I had a skill of building WordPress, a technical skill of building websites. And I was like, I'm going to charge money for this technical skill. So my initial, in the most amount of my experience was rooted in the technical part of it. I would say my sales skills have tremendously started to go up as of recently with like the content and the agency side of things, like kind of all coming together, being able to sell more there and have more reps there. But my point in saying is like, if you gave me technical and sales as like two buckets of how competent I am, I know how to do a lot of shit, like within the confines of what we're doing here. And I'm good at learning these new things, like teaching myself pay-per-click ads and all this other stuff, SEO and all that. So like my point in saying that is if I was going to delegate, to your point, those are the things that I should probably start delegating, because again, I'm above average in those things. I know the process. And then you get somebody that like knows more than you, but you know enough to not screw yourself and to not like get the wool pulled over your eyes for any sort of reason. And then that would free up more time for me to get better at like continue to focus on like sales or continue to focus on like the higher level things. The one other point I wanted to make about process is that if you told me right now, Mark, sit down and do whatever research you need, ChatGPT, other creators, other people, other whatever, other resources, and build a very good system for to hand off to one of these people for whatever it would be. I would take my experience, I would take other people's experience, and I could guarantee you that I could build you a solid ass system. There's no reason to start from zero anymore. There's just none. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect by any fucking means. I'm also saying that it's like, it almost sometimes sounds like it has to be perfect. It's not even like possible. It's not going to ever be perfect. It's absolutely not going to be perfect from the start, but it could be like a good baseline. The where the real skill I think comes in is like managing expectations with whoever you delegate. Like, hey, this is the process right now. I'll always communicate this with you, but it's probably going to change as we continue to realize like, oh, we didn't really account for that last project. Let's make sure we put that into our process moving forward. That type of shit. That is, I know I'm good at that. I'm moving in the right direction, but I need to remember to focus on that, because I will get distracted with this other shit that it should just be like, you can do it, but make sure you're remembering that that's not really where you're headed. Like you're kind of past that. And you just need to, again, everything's going to come back to ultimately revenue and sales. And that's, if I spend more time there, then ultimately I'm going to be able to make my skills better, make more money, and be able to not do the other stuff that.
You're absolutely right. Like there's perfection is the enemy of done. And I don't disagree with you with that, because I too overanalyze things to a fault, right? And which also goes for processes, right? We're like understanding the process, understanding like what we're going to put into this stuff, and you know, that can certainly slow me down and has slowed me down a lot. But again, back to your original tweet, the idea here was to say, at least again on the agency side, I was thinking to myself, are you really ready to delegate that stuff if you're not totally maxed out on bandwidth? Because I think that you can. Okay, so how do we wrap this up? I'm of a belief that I think, and when it comes to defining processes and really like learning how those processes are built, to me, you must max yourself out mentally, right? Like that's my belief. Your belief is you can create the workflow based on like the knowledge that you already have. So I don't think either of us are wrong. It's just two different perspectives.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I have that. I mean, again, I would be,
because on paper, I just want you to on record, like you've proven, like you've confidently illustrated the picture that Mark Szymanski can do this, and this is his strength, right? But on record, for the public, once again, are you drowning in the work right now? Are you drowning in the work right now?
Drowning in the work. I feel like if I was drowning in the work, I would be also drowning in money. And no, I'm not drowning in money. I mean,
Fine.
no, well, actually, no, you know, I take that back. Am I drowning in work? Probably not, but I've absolutely been drowning in work and not drowning in money. So I take that back, because that's when I was being an idiot and selling like so much stuff for such a stupid amount of small money when I could deliver on it. I still don't know what the definition of drowning in work is, but no, I don't spend every moment like thinking, oh, I need to deliver this for a client. That said, I'm going to put another caveat in here, but at the same time, again, it's like still a balancing act of adding help and making sure that sales are still there. I could probably Like I could probably take 2 weeks, not do any work and just try to sell and make probably a good amount of money. But then it's like, now this is the common fucking solopreneur thing though. It's like you sell the job and then you do the job and then you have to find the other one. It's like, I don't want to do that. Like I know I've already done that in the past. So you just have to, I guess, work really, really hard for enough time for where you can kind of dig yourself out of that hole and then continue to work a little bit less hard, sort of like comparatively, because you're going to have other people, or you can work differently, like hard differently moving forwards because other people would be doing some more of the work and taking that off your back.
Yeah. Hopefully that means more sales, God willing. But it'll be less time like creating the podcast content, maybe more YouTube stuff. But yeah, like definitely finding, but then there's always like that next thing on the other side, right? Like right now, yeah, there's a bunch of like contracts that I have to like work through and a bunch of like proposals and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I love that part of it, but again, like you said, I like the sales and like the deal structuring and all that to the point. Like I love, for some reason I should have been a lawyer. I love like contracts and those things, but then, you know, you tire yourself out on that, you get the money, and then it's like, okay, now I have to go deliver this. And like for us, I don't think talking or looking at products or whatever is the hard part.
All right. So to wrap up this, to put a bow on this one, which I was starting to say before, at least when it comes to delegation, process creation, I'm of the mindset that you must experience what I call more pain to the point where you go, now I know I have to delegate this ultimately, where you're much more of a free thinker and you're like, no, I'm confident enough to do this. I have the tools to craft it and I should do this now versus waiting to be encumbered by all the work I have to do. Fair? Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say it's fair. I don't want to be hiring when I don't want to force myself to hire somebody bad when I'm so like I'm drowning. And then it's like, oh, now I need somebody to actually fulfill something and they suck because I didn't have the mental bandwidth to even hire somebody at that point.
Yes. I should say Mark Szymanski, mjs.bio. Another domain yet?
That's it, buddy. Just all the links are there. Go do your thing.
mjs.bio, wpminute.com. This coming up this month, Toby Crines and Kurt Von Onen will host a conversation on WordPress agencies. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you potentially in the next one.